Hello my good people, welcome to Take It Book Club. Today we look at the plot summary of the story A Man of Awesome Power. Tayyib al-Mahdi is a man who believes that he has completed his mission in life and is living a contented, retired existence in an apartment in Nassau City. His current life is peaceful and uneventful. He spends time watching television, reading newspapers or listening to the radio in the comfort of his apartment that he shares with his wife since his daughters are already married. One night, a man of radiant appearance appears to him in a dream and tells him that he has the power to make things happen simply by saying, "Be." At first, Tayyib is skeptical of the dream, but when he tries out his new power by commanding the television to change channels and makes it happen, he realizes that the dream was real. And armed with the newly acquired power, he sets out to reform his country and the entire planet as he had often wished. He begins to use his power in various ways, such as making a taxi driver's tire explode when the driver refuses to pick him up, making a television broadcaster sneeze uncontrollably, and forcing a corrupt businessman to go to the tax prosecutor's office to repent and pay his debts. As he uses his power more and more, Tayyib becomes more confident and ambitious, and he begins to draw up a comprehensive plan for using his power to reform his country and the world. However, after a brief period of happiness and success with using his power, Tayyib makes a grave mistake that causes his power to be taken from him. The start of the mistake, Tayyib falls in love with a woman at the zoo. Culmination of the mistake, Tayyib uses his power to make the woman at the zoo fall in love with him. Consequence of the mistake, their intimacy costs him his incredible power. He pays this price for misusing the power that God had freely given him. After this realization that his power was disappeared, Tayyib was left feeling sad and regretful. For though Tayyib is busy planning to effectively utilize his power for the good of all sectors in the country, the aforementioned unfortunate incidents, the mistake caused by his greed, which is a bad and selfish use of this power, occurs, and thus he loses it all. Tayyib not only loses the power given to him freely by God, but also the comfort and contentment that he had at the beginning of the story. After all, Tayyib experiences a tremendous sadness that will haunt him for the rest of his life. The plot tells the story of the ideal growth into power positions and how individuals grow from honest intentions to self-centeredness. The short of it, the moral man who eventually abuses his power. An incident in the park. The short story opens with a gloomy description of the park. We meet some park loungers who waste hours on end sleeping in the park. Most of the idlers do not pay heed to the parliament and city hall clocks and would rather loll all day doing nothing. At one, office workers come out of their offices in swarms. They are then swallowed by the sad city as they disperse in search of lunch. The idlers in the park nonchalantly watch the workers emerge from their offices, disappear into the city, and even anticipate the wave of workers to return from various eateries and flood past the park back to their various offices. The patched park was almost dead, alive only with a few idlers. Among the idle men sitting or lying under the tree and shrubs is a fruit seller. He sits under a shrub taking stock of his sales. He mumbles and curses and lays on his bark, covering his face with his bony hands. He lunges during lunch break. Maybe he is too poor to afford a meal. More idle men sit by a small lake watching a couple of men paddling hired boats. These loafers while away doing this every day. The park is poorly maintained. A pond in the park is choking with ugly weeds. An idle man defies the order not to feed the hungry fish and defiantly throws rubbish into the water. Soon, he starts conversing with a fellow idler. They chat about how fish are like people. The largest fish in the pond bullies the smaller fish as they compete for food in their feeding ground. The man feeding the fish avers that there is a great big fish that could drink all water in the ocean and cause a great drought, making the world to come to an end. The huge monster supposedly eats other fish. In the park, we also meet two ice cream men who desperately try to sell their ice cream to no avail. Later, city constables confront the fruit seller about his license and identity card. He claims that he left them at home and tries to bribe them with 5 shillings and later 10 shillings, but they could hear nothing of it. He desperately pleads with the man to let him go. He has a case with the judge he calls a tyrant. He sells fruit to raise a fine for the case. His father offers the constable 1 basket of fruits and 10 shillings. He even offers them both his fruit basket, desperately trying to buy his freedom. When they remain steadfast, decides to run for it, but sadly he is accosted by a mob who mistake him for a thief and they stone him to death. They judge him based on his dirty torn clothes and a mean hungry face, the uniform of his trade. The police come to collect the body, but no one is willing to appear as a witness to recount the events, leading to the poor man's untimely demise in the hands of a callous, erratic mob. The 2 loungers who were talking about fish witnessed the whole spectacle before drifting guiltily back to the park to continue loafing. The park is once again tranquil, just like a pond moments after someone splashes something into the water. Ninamar. The passage is about a market gardener named Ninamar who grows and sells herbs at the Indian market. Ninamar is described as a hardworking and respected woman who is admired by those around her for her skill and determination. Despite facing challenges, including an attack by an unknown assailant, Ninamar is described as facing them head-on and winning. She is practical and focused on earning a living, and is well regarded by her customers. Ninamar is also described as a beautiful woman who is admired by those around her, although she does not seem to be aware of this. She is described as having long, toned arms, a kinked waist, and high, firm breasts, and is known for her piercing black eyes and high cheekbones. Despite the attention she receives from others, Ninamar is primarily focused on her work and does not let the attention distract her. Throughout the passage, Ninamar's interaction with customers and colleagues are described in detail. The passage mentions a regular customer named Mr. Chinran, a rich lawyer who is infatuated with Ninamar, and Mrs. Singh, a wealthy old woman who is known for haggling over prices but is also a loyal customer. The passage also mentions other lady hawkers at the market who chat with Ninamar while they work. Overall, the passage provides a detailed and nuanced portrayal of Ninamar, a strong and determined woman who is respected by those around her for the hard work and determination of hers. Despite facing challenges and societal barriers as well as physical attack, Ninamar remains focused on her goals and is able to succeed in her chosen profession. A Silent Song. A Silent Song is a story about Mbani, a young paralyzed, blind city street beggar who has spent much of his life living in the streets of a city, begging for money and seeking shelter in a back lane at night. He lives in destitution, begging from the passers-by while seething with pain and discomfort. However, despite being surrounded by people and activity, Mbane is isolated and unable to fully participate in the rhythms and pleasures of urban life. He is unable to share in the small talk of the pedestrians, and even when they sing or whistle to the morning sky, Mbane can only observe from a distance. In the story, the city is depicted as a place of noise and activity, with people singing and dancing and engaging in various forms of work and leisure. However, Mbane is only able to experience this activity from a limited perspective and is unable to fully understand or participate in it. This is due to Mbane's blindness, paralysis, and destitution. As such, he cannot really participate in the city's noise and activity. In contrast to Mbane's destitution, his brother is a wealthy preacher who, in quotes, rescues Mbane from the barbaric city unto the light of God after neglecting him for a long time. Mbane's brother rescues him from the city and brings him to a hut in a serene but suspicious location. Mbane reflects on his life in the city and the difference between his new surroundings and the city, including the lack of noise and busyness, the presence of trees, and the fact that his brother has brought him here with the intention of showing him the light of God. Though Mbane was unable to fully join in and express himself in the city with its vibrant energy and culture, he misses it. He painfully reminisces his street life with nostalgia at his brother's lonely hut. He thinks about his brother and wonders what his intentions are in bringing him to the hut. He is not as happy, though he is now in a more serene environment. He remembers the bright weather, lovely morning, and beautiful sunset as the city bustling with people during the day talk. At night, the good men and women turn drunk, and the pimps and warriors have their turn to smile, sing, and dance. Though he used to beg day and night for a living. In his religious brother Ezekiel's hut, Mbane is nursed by Sarah, his brother's wife, who administers bitter fluid down his throat. He swallows it painfully, and she assures him of being well. His religious brother Ezekiel preaches to him about Christ, the saved ones and sinners. He also asks him whether he knows where sinners go when they die, whether he accepts Jesus, and Mbane says he does not. No. Mbane wonders why certain groups such as pimps and warriors are considered bad, and reflects on the violence and hostility that he has witnessed in the city. Mbane is in pain and struggling to survive, and at one point he is overwhelmed by sharp pangs and momentarily paralyzed by them. Before Ezekiel saves him, that is, brings him into the light of God, Mbane's strength wanes. The pain goes, his head jerks down to the bed, and he is gone. In the end, Mbane is unable to fully comprehend and connect with his brother, and feels that his brother's effort to communicate and guide him are like a silent song, a message that is present, but that Mbane is unable to fully hear, understand. Despite this, Mbane remains hopeful that his brother's intentions are well intended and that he will be able to find meaning and purpose in his new surroundings.
Ivory bangles. The old man goes to a tribal seer for a consultation after noticing something strange about a goat he had slaughtered. The seer After listening to the old man tells him that his wife is going to die based off that sign from the slaughtered goat. And the only way to prevent this is to give the wife a thorough beating and send her to her parents. The seer's fables say that the man's wife is going to die because the spirits were jealous of a happy wife. The old man is hesitant to follow this advice and suggests offering goats as a sacrifice instead. However, the seer is adamant that to avert the wife's death, the fables say he has to give her a thorough beating. The old man is a chief's counselor and is regarded as a small chief. As much as he is respected, many are surprised that he has only one wife. When the chief suggests that he marries another wife, the man replies using a riddle. The chief quickly unveils the riddle as a wife, a co-wife, witchcraft, and death. This reveals that the people have deep-seated beliefs about witchcraft and death. The man loves his wife dearly. When she had their first child, he gifted her 24 handcrafted ivory bangles, some etched with the words of a love poem. During the evening meal with his wife, the man is disturbed since he doesn't know how to deliver the bad news to his loving wife. That night, the man divulges the seer's words to his wife. The spirits want me to give you a ritual beating. You can find that on page 22. However, the woman dismisses this and hints that she knows the seer. He once wanted to marry her and had threatened to put a spell on her. The man is adamant that the seer did not put blood specks in the goat's liver and that he is only the mouthpiece of their dead ancestors. The man is ready to carry out the seer's instructions in order to avert the wife's death. The wife talks him out of it, proposing that there is another way. The old man's wife goes to the market. While at the market, she thinks of her plan. She intends to go home and cook for the husband before going to her brother's place. She will go there weeping that her husband had beaten her for no reason and will refuse to go back to him until her clan and her husband's clan met to reconcile them. The husband will be asked to part with a fine and they will drink beer of reconciliation. This will certainly fool the spirits. As she returns home from the market, she hears people talking about a herd of elephants that are coming down from the forest. She hurries home and does some gardening before enacting the plan. As she gardens, her thoughts wander to Liveri, her daughter-in-law, who had helped her weed just 3 weeks ago. Liveri had ran away from her husband who had beaten her badly. The woman does not understand why the son is different from his father. While gardening, she is attacked and killed by a wounded bull elephant after it lifts her and stomps her repeatedly. When she is found, she is a mass of flesh and blood with shattered ivory bangles. That is, they found her thus in her shallow grave, a mass of flesh and blood and shattered ivory bangles. Find that on page 25. The powers of the seer seem to be confirmed since his earish predictions come to pass. The woman dies because she deviates from customary norms after her husband and she defies the tribal seer, a priest of the people. The sins of the fathers. In the sins of the fathers, we revisit scares of the past and appreciate how past hurts can cause present and future pain if the victims do not heal and forgive their supposed enemies. Forgiveness can help avert calamitous trials. Mr. Ruffer, an ex-minister and Liberation War veteran, clings on to hatred, and this obstinate refusal to forgive and forget causes the tragic death of his grandchildren and his son's father-in-law when they perish in a car crash he engineered. Long take. The Sins of the Fathers by Charles Mangoshi is a post-colonial story set in rural Zimbabwe. It takes place between Borodale and Bulawayo. Rondo is the antagonist character whose revenge world opens at the story's very beginning. Rondo's father, Rafa, is an ex-minister but still influential in the political world of Zimbabwe. This is evident from how a fraction of mourners just come to take pictures with him, for such photos will soon open doors for them. Rondo has a wife, Selina, daughter of Basil Mzamani, who is also into politics as an MP and a businessman. In fact, he is a political rival of the Rondo's father, Rafa. Rondo's two children, both daughters, Yuna and Rhoda, are in an accident as they are driving home from a birthday party with their grandfather, Basil Mzamani, where Rafa takes to the podium to condemn his son for marrying from his enemy Basil. This has all along created bad blood between him and his son that this accident makes Rondo believe that his father had a hand in it. In their many stories, a revelation of what his father, Gaston, alludes to. Have you ever wondered about the Second Street accidents? Rondo Rafa wistfully imagines how his father-in-law, Mr. Basil Mzamani, and his daughters, Yuna and Rhoda, met their untimely deaths. He hopes they died happily, trying to erase his own pain. The three Jolly family members perished in a tragic car crash after attending the girl's birthday party at Rondo's house in Borodale. He has been grieving for a week now, numbed by the pain. Rondo is surprised when his father adverts that one day Rondo will be grateful and glad that the tragedy happened then and not later. He adds, "You will remember me and thank me." Find that on page 28. Rondo's thoughts wander to a distant introspection. When his father leaves, the thought that he lives in his father's shadow grounds him. He is not his own man. His wife thinks she could do better in his parents, and he is laughingstock among his friends and colleagues. Selina, his wife, seems to be the more confident and influential on their pair. This can be attributed to the fact that they were brought up differently. Selina was brought up by people with long hearts, people who forgave others, while Rondo's father is an unforgiving savage. His father is a bombed out battlefield of scars. And this deepest scar is that he cannot forgive not just his enemies, says Miss Rafa, his wife. Find that on page 31. He cannot even forgive his wife or his son. His bitterness arises from the past when his Zezeru Karanga clan was attacked by Matsvitundebele clan. The war affected him so much that he always remembered the pain of the scars rather than the relief of healing. The situation is compounded by the fact that his son Rondo married into a Matsviri family. Furthermore, he gives birth to two girls instead of a grandson who would inherit Rafa's wealth and qualities like his charisma. Mr. Rafa is so disappointed in Rondo that it affects Rondo's personality. It is Mr. Rafa's ill treatment of his only son that makes Rondo a timed laughingstock among his peers. It is thus suspicious that the grandchildren that Mr. Rafa considers inglorious die in an accident together with their grandfather, whom Rafa detests so much. Rondo starts to put two and two together while interacting with his colleague and friend Gaston Choco. Choco refers to the accident that claimed Rondo's children's life as a typical Second Street accident, a subliminal hint that Mr. Rafa may have been the architect behind the accident. The bad blood between Rafa's family and Zamane's family is apparent at the party. Although Basil Zamane is benevolent and compassionate, Rafa remains obdurate and unforgiving. The two men's speeches at the birthday party turn sour, betraying the underlying resentment. A day before the party, the two men also disagreed on the matter of white people on the country. Mr. Zamane proposed that people should be viewed as individuals because some are good while others are bad. On the other hand, Rafa holds blanket condemnation of groups of people and views anyone who seemed supportive of this supposed enemy as a traitor. Further back, Mr. Zamane had taken care of the expenses of their children's wedding, while Rafa skipped the ceremony altogether, claiming he was away on state business for 2 weeks. Mr. Rafa also hungers for a certain farm owned by a white man known as Mr. Harley, and he is ready to get it by all means. At the party, they try to conceal the boiling agitation between them behind the tight smiles and loud laughs. Later on, Mr. Rafa recklessly talks about betrayal and enmity between clans and families, causing visitors to live uncomfortably one after another. In the course of his rant, Mr. Rafa derides their weak sons who marry into families of their enemies and contaminate the pure blood of the family. In his father's presence, Rondo always felt powerless. His mother insists that the old man loved his son but does not know how to show it. The story ends tragically when Mr. Rafa takes his own wife using his service pistol, after being confronted by his son, who he hotly labeled slob. With that soft muffled pop, the bitter past filled with pain is probably buried. The sins of the fathers are washed away by their own blood. In the words of acclaimed American rapper and mogul Sean Corey Carter, Jay-Z, nobody wins when the family feeds the truly married woman. The truly married woman follows Ajayi, a civil servant, and his relationship with Ayo, a woman he eventually marries. In the beginning, Ajayi and Ayo live together, cohabitate, but aren't married despite the fact that Ayo had always wanted to be married properly. While Ayo tries to coerce Ajayi to marry her, Ajayi is hesitant as he feels that marriage involves some wild spending and the ceremony is unnecessarily costly. Ajayi's view on marriage frustrates Ayo until she accepts that it will never happen. Thus, she stops trying to talk Ajayi into marrying her. Basically, she gives up on the issue. Despite not being officially married, the couple's time together appears relatively amicable as Ayo performs her wifely duties faithfully. They enjoy an everyday family life punctuated with minor conflicts such as one that arises over Ajayi's beating of their son Oju. This conflict surprises Ajayi as Ayo rarely ever disagreed with him. At this point, Ayo's modernized trail is revealed as she discloses that she has been attending women's meetings where they learn modern ideas of overseas doctors. Ajayi spends his day in the office thinking about this revelation about the women's meeting, which makes him admire Ayo more. As the closing hours approach, Ajayi receives an unexpected guest: missionaries from World Gospel Crusading Alliance, WGCA. He remembers that he had contacted them with the hope of getting free Bibles, religious pictures, and maybe some magazines. However, the missionaries are set out enrolling him as one of them. But the chief clerk saves him by explaining that it was prohibited for government workers to become missionaries. He invites the team, that is, the 3 men from WGCA, together with the chief to his home, where the wife, Ayo, reorganizes the house after learning that guests are on their way. She even borrows a wedding ring from a neighbor. After the visit, Ajayi decides to propose to Ayo, and they begin making wedding arrangements. Although she is shocked, Ayo welcomes the marriage and thus starts preparing for it. Ironically, she turns down his sexual advances that evening, arguing that it will be incorrect. She then moves back to her parents' home, where the traditional marriage preparation practices are carried out. Ayo's father is initially hesitant to allow the wedding and tests Ajayi's family's resolve by bringing out several women for them to inspect before finally presenting Ayo. Soon, the church wedding ceremony takes place. Ayo chooses to dress in a grey dress instead of the traditional white one, as Ayaji had wished. The grey dress is symbolic of her impurity since she is already a mother of 3. She also wanted a corset to ensure she did not look too massive. After the church wedding, a European ceremony is also conducted where a wedding cake is cut. Ajayi notices that Ayo had been transformed after the wedding. On the morning after the wedding, Ajayi is surprised to find that Ayo is no longer serving him tea in bed, as she had done for the 12 years they had been together. The morning after the wedding, Ajayi is met with a rude shock when he wakes up. Ayo does not wake up early to prepare breakfast as usual. He concludes that maybe she was taken ill. When he asks her, she replies nonchalantly that he should wake up and make himself a cup of tea. She even contemptuously wonders if something is wrong with his legs. Surprisingly, she demands respect from him, asserting that she is now a truly married woman. The story emphasizes the importance of valid marriage as compared to cohabitating. Through this emphasis, the writer, however, satirizes marriage as it is not only economically draining but fails to provide happiness that would come with it. Talking money. The short summary of it: a man sells a piece of land to some shady character against the advice of his family and friends, only to find out that the money he is given as payment is cursed. The story is set in the vast rural expanse of Kakamega, Kenya. It is about a man named Mukidanyi who lives in a rural area and sells land to a wealthy man named Gallo. He is warned against this transaction by his wife, Ronika, and also his brothers Goseywe and Agoya. Mukidanyi's brother Goseywe and Agoya give up on him and leave. Obsessed with the money in his mind, he refuses to heed his wife's counsel and instead flogs her. Despite their warnings, Mukidanyi goes ahead and signs papers, accepting a large sum of money from Gayo. After the papers are signed and the money is received, strange occurrences start happening in Mukidanyi's house. Voices are heard coming from under the bed where the money was kept. Frightened by these events, Ronika forces Mukidanyi to return the money and the land back to Gallo in the middle of the night. Mukidanyi, scared and regretful, runs away from the house with the money. and delivers it back to Gallo. Then he runs away in fear, not stopping until he feels safe. Long summary. When Mukidanyi's brothers, Goseiwe and Agoyo, try to talk him out of an imprudent decision, he angrily expels them from his home. Their altercation almost erupts into a physical fight. He makes a concerted declaration that he does not need anyone's help. He wants to run his household without interference. He is determined to sell his land against his brother's wish. He is so enraged that the neighbors watch the drama helplessly from afar. Later on that evening, Ronika, his wife, sensibly tries to dissuade him from selling the land without consultation and urges him to listen to other people's counsel. He first ignores her before furiously giving her a lashing, promptly extinguishing her fair-minded plea. He ignores her entreaties about the gallows money not being good. Mukidanyi defies his brother and his wife and goes ahead to sell the land to Gallo. Although he is prepared for a bruising tussle with Gallo, Gallo accepts to pay 500,000 shillings without haggling. Because of his intrigances, he will be forgiven to consider Mukidanyi a pig-headed fool. He is, however, not a complete buffoon. On one hand, he is illiterate, since during his school days he will sneak out of school and skip classes and spend his days playing simbi and roasting stolen maize with his errant friends. On the other hand, he is an astute castle raider with an impressive business acumen. Because he is unlettered, he is unable to sign the business papers presented by Gallo's assistant after the sale of the land. He needs Ngoseiwe and Agoyer around after all. After the messy paper business is over, Gayo hands him a briefcase containing 500,000 shillings in cash. Mukidanyi is too shocked to count the money in the briefcase. Unsuspectedly, he tells Gallo that he trusts him. Besides, will the clansman deceive him? That evening, Mukidanyi is navy. He does not eat his supper. He cannot sleep that night. He wakes up twice to ascertain that the money is still there, safely chained to the bedpost. He also awakens Ronika, who is still piqued from the lashing she received earlier. Something curious happens when he tries to go back to sleep. The money in the briefcase starts conversing casually like a couple of frisky schoolboys sauntering home from school. This bizarre occurrence has the couple scared out of their wits. The once willful and ostensibly gallant Mukidanyi suddenly recoils like a panicky chicken. When he hears the strange voices, he is horror-stricken. He shakes and sweats in panic. His assertive voice is reduced into a frightened childlike whisper when he asks, "Who were they?" An angry Ronika scolds, derides and hysterically laughs at him. She taunts him for failing to listen to other people. "I warned you about the Gallo, didn't I? Ngoseiwe and Agoya warned you to against this, didn't they, big man? And what did you do? Tell me, what did you do?" The money talks again, this time complaining about the couple's argument. "I don't like the shouting. It was better with the silence." Ronika has had enough. She drugs Mukidanyi and forces him to unlock the padlock securing the briefcase. She then snarls at him, hurls the briefcase outside and sends him after it. The frightened children are stunned to see their mother so agitated and their father extremely scared. The journey to the gallows is eerie, to say the least. Mukidanyi is haunted by unseen night creatures swimming around him, threatening to harm him. He is nonetheless determined to return the peculiar briefcase to Gallo. Gallo lives a couple hundred yards away, but it seems like a mile. The case gets heavier and heavier as Mukidani lumbers on. The stubborn man eventually returns the money. He also makes a change of tune about selling his land. I changed my mind about selling the land. Here's your money. Moral lesson of the story. It is prudent to listen to wise counsel. Failure to heed good advice may result in unwanted consequences. Ghosts. Adichie's short story, Ghosts, alludes to the 1967 to 1970 Biafra War in Nigeria, which she deploys as a pivotal vantage point to scan the realities of post-colonial Nigerian state. The plot of the story unfolds through the narrative voice of Professor James Nwale, a retired 71-year-old mathematics professor who was at Nsukka University at the time it fell to the federal forces during the Civil War. The protagonist in the story epitomizes the devastation of the war, having lost a child to it and suffered disruption and dislocation. Ghosts focuses on the present but flashes back to the past to reveal the harsh realities of the fictional post-colonial spaces it recreated. The story, Ghosts, is set on a university campus in Nigeria and follows the character of James Nwale, a retired professor, as he reflects on his past, current life and encounters with the ghost of his late wife Ebere. The story opens with James running onto the former colleague, Ikenna Okoro, who was thought to have died during the Nigerian Civil War, known as the Biafran War, but it is revealed that he did not die. James and Ikenna reminisce about the past, but their conversation also touches on the current state of the university, which is plagued by corruption and late pension payments. Throughout the story, James reflects on the impact of the war on his life, how he and his fellow survivors have chosen to move on from it with a sense of implacable vagueness, focusing more on the fact that they have survived rather than the horrors they witnessed. The theme of the war is closely intertwined with the theme of ghosts, and the trauma of the war is still very much present in James' mind and the ghost of his wife Ebere. Ebere visits James regularly, and he is comforted by her visits, and she brings a sense of peace and familiarity to him as he is still grieving her death. James also mentions that the fake drugs epidemic is a new problem in Nigeria, and he fears that the man who produces these drugs might be not punished, making it easier for him to produce more fake drugs that can lead to more deaths. As the story comes to a close, James reflects on the current state of his life. He describes it as being neither good nor bad, but simply his. Though nobody talks about the war, James suggests that everybody who experiences it lives with the memories of it just like he does. People ignore or sidestep the truth around other living people, but the war lingers like a ghost. The title Ghost is fitting as it encapsulates the multiple layers of the story, from the literal ghost of Ebere to the metaphorical ghost of the war and its impact on James' life, and the ever-present threat of fake drugs, which are like a ghost lingering in the background and causing harm without being seen.
God sees the truth but waits. Check the link in the description to get the summary overview notes of this story among many others that you will find there. Alright, let's start today's overview. God Sees the Truth But Waits is a short story by Leo Tolstoy that follows the story of a man named Ivan, who is falsely accused of murder and robbery and is sentenced to 26 years of imprisonment in Siberia. Before he is framed and accused of the heinous crime, Ivan is a young merchant from the town of Vladimir. He owns 2 shops and a house. As a young man, he was unruly and given to drinking, a tad too much, but he stopped drinking when he got married. One day, he bids his family goodbye as he is leaving for the Nazir fair. His wife dissuades him from going since she had a bad dream about him. She dreams that he will return when his hair is quite grey. She beseeches him to put off the journey till a later date. Ivan laughs it off and says that it is a lucky sign and carries through with his intended journey. Halfway through the journey, he meets a merchant who is an acquaintance of his. They spend the night at the same inn, have tea together and sleep in adjoining rooms. The next morning, Ivan awakens his driver, pays the owner of the inn and they leave before dawn. After about 25 miles, Ivan decides to rest while his horses are fed. He is then approached by an official accompanied by 2 soldiers. The official questions him, revealing that the merchant he spent the night together with at the inn had been murdered. Ivan, in the prime suspect since he was with the man and then left suspiciously early. Ivan denies having taken part in any wrongdoing, but when his luggage is searched, the officer finds a blood-stained knife. The official insists that Ivan murdered the merchant and continues to cross-examine him on how he did it and how much money he stole. Ivan pleads innocence, claiming that he only has 8,000 rubles and that the knife is not his. With the odds stacked against him, trembling and looking guilty, Ivan is apprehended. His money and goods are seized. He weeps bitterly. Inquiries are made about him at his hometown of Vladimir, and it turns out he used to drink a lot and love in his younger days, but he is a good man. Nonetheless, he is charged with murder of the merchant from Ryazan and stealing 20,000 rubles from him. His wife visits him in prison. She is restricted from seeing him at first. After begging, the officials allow her and the small children to see Ivan. She faints at the sight of her loving husband in prison attire and in chains, locked up with thieves and criminals. They talk a bit and he tells her that she must petition the Caesar to spare an innocent man the anguish of unfair retribution. His wife informs him that her efforts to petition have borne no fruits. She then reminds him of her pretentious dream about the grey hair and says, "Vanya dearest, tell your wife the truth, was it not you who did it?" Ivan weeps in disbelief when even his dear wife is dubious, disbelieving and suspicious. He realizes that only God knows the truth and it is only to him that he should appeal. After that, Ivan stops writing petitions and gives up all hope, praying only to God. He is condemned to flogging and sent to the mines. He is flogged with the knots and sent to Siberia. He lives in Siberia for 26 years as a prisoner. His hair and beard turn grey and he transforms into a frail old man who walks slowly, speaks little, and never laughs. Through his time in prison, he becomes known as a meek and pious man among the other prisoners, who even call him grandfather and the saint. One day, a fresh gang of convicts come to the prison. Among them, Ivan meets a man named Makar Semyonik. Ivan begins to suspect the Makar is the one who committed the murder he had been accused of. This makes him deeply afflicted that he contemplates taking his own life. He remembers his early days as a free man with fond nostalgia. He feels deeply downcast when he recalls the happier times with his laughing wife, seeing his little children and how young, happy, and free from care he was. He also remembers the day he was apprehended, the flogging, the executioner, chains, convicts, and the 26 years of undeserved confinement and hard labor. He feels deep anger and hatred for Marker and longs for revenge. He prays all night but finds no peace. His preceding days and nights are riddled with misery. One night, he stumbles upon Marker attempting to dig a hole under the wall to escape. Marker threatens to kill him should he tell on him, to which Ivan replies that, "You killed me long ago. As to telling of you, I may do so, or not, as God shall direct." When the convoy soldiers discover the tunnel and question Ivan, he responds that it's not God's desire that he should tell. He reasons that he will gain nothing taking revenge on Marker even if he made him pay for his transgressions. He has no faith in the human justice system. That night, Marker comes to Ivan's bed and confesses his crime and begs earnestly for forgiveness. Marker sobs as he desperately pleads with the old man to pardon him. Ivan also begins to weep. Surprisingly, he says simply, "God will forgive you. Maybe I am 100 times worse than you." At this point, his heart grows light and he no longer desires to leave the Siberian prison and go home. He only desires to die and be with God. Marker confesses to the authorities, but by the time they order for Ivan's release, he is already dead. The Neighborhood Watch. But before that, check the link in the description to get the summary notes of this story among many other stories. Alright, let's start today's overview. The story, Neighborhood Watch, follows a group of homeless individuals: Elias, Lazarus, Martin, Silas, and Omagano, who have formed a bond and a system for survival on the streets of Windhoek, Namibia. They call themselves the Neighborhood Watch and have specific days dedicated to scavenging for food and other necessities in different neighborhoods. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they avoid poor areas and instead focus on neighborhoods where they know they will find more valuable resources, such as white or wealthier black communities. On Fridays and Saturdays, they stay in a designated spot called headquarters to avoid potential troubles with the police. And on Sundays, they focus on the neighborhood of Harvest, Klein, Windhoek, and Eros, where they know they will find the most resources and the least interference. The group also receives assistance from an elderly woman, Mrs. Bezuit Dunhope, who regularly gives them food, clothing, and other necessities out of her own generosity. Throughout this story, the group faces numerous challenges and dangers, including police interrogations, violent rival gangs, and constant struggles for survival. They learn to adapt and evolve, becoming more strategic on their scavenging and avoiding certain areas for safety reasons. The theme of survival is prevalent throughout this story, as the group must constantly find ways to survive on the streets, not only for themselves but also for each other. December. But before that, check the link in the description to get the summary notes of this story among many other stories that you'll find there. Alright, let's start today's overview. The story, December, centers around the relationship between September, the narrator and protagonist, and his sister, December. December is a patient in a psychiatric ward, and September visits her after a long absence, during which he has been studying abroad. The story explores the past and the present of their family, and the impact of December's illness on September and the rest of the family. The story starts with September visiting December in the psychiatric ward, where he is greeted with hostility from the nurse because he is late. He soon runs into a former acquaintance, Shuveni,
who is now a security guard at the hospital. Shuveni and September catch up for a bit before Shuveni has to go back to work. September then visits December, and they spend their time together catching up and reminiscing about the past. Through the story, September reflects on how December's illness has affected their family and how it has changed her. He also reflects on the past, particularly on the naming convention of his family, where the children are named after the month they were conceived. September is particularly inflected by the fact that December was born in September, which creates an interesting dynamic in the story. The story also touches on the theme of loss, family, and tradition. December's illness is a loss for the family, and September's reflections on the past and the secrets that his grandfather took to the grave are also a reminder of loss. The story also touches on the importance of family and traditions in their culture, with December's grandfather believing that she was bewitched and the naming convention of the children being a reference to tradition. In the conclusion of the story, September returns home to attend his grandfather's funeral and bury him next to his father in the village graveyard. The story also implies that September has not been able to make it to visit December again, and he is left with the guilt of not being able to fulfill his promise to her. Ezekiel Shikongo, the grandfather who had been taking care of December, has not been able to visit her in a while, and it is suggested that he has passed away. The story ends on a melancholic note as September is left to deal with the loss of both his sister and grandfather. Boy, this, I have to admit, is one of the shortest reviews that I've had to do in this channel. Yes, you guys will have to bear with me. But before we start, check the link in the description to get the summary notes of this story and many other stories that you will get there. Alright, let's start today's overview. The story Boy is set in Kenya during a time of political turmoil and land conflict. The protagonist is a young girl who is the sister of Boy, the titular character. Boy is taken by the militia and becomes a part of their group. His family is left mourning him, with his father digging a grave for him and his mother going insane due to the loss of her son. However, the story takes a turn when they receive news that Boy has joined the militia. The family struggles with the idea of Boy being a part of the militia, who are causing destruction in the community. Eventually, the militia is defeated and Boy is killed. The protagonist struggles with the loss of her brother and the fact that he was part of the militia. Oh, and before you sign off, I would really like to inform you that we have a WhatsApp group and a community that will enhance your learning skills and take you to another level. If you're interested, let me know in the comment section below. Checkmate, which happens to be the last story overview that we are doing in the book A Silent Song and Other Stories. But before that, check the link in the description to get the summary notes of this story among other stories that you will find there. Alright, let's start today's overview. The story, Checkmate, follows the character Sukia as she discovers a discrepancy in her bank account which involves a large sum of money. She initially believes it is a mistake, but upon further investigation, she realizes that it is a check signed by her boss, Randall. Sukia becomes suspicious and decides to confront Randall about the check. During her commute back to the city, she reflects on her past work experiences with Randall and how she has always been loyal to him, but also how he has always been secretive and cunning. Upon her arrival at Randall's office, she presents him with a check and demands an explanation. He reveals that the check is a payment for her to keep quiet about a shady business deal involving the undervaluation of shares in a methanol plant. Sukir is shocked, but also realizes that Randall has been manipulating her and the company's finances for a long time. She then pulls out a manila envelope containing several more checks, all of which have been forged with Randall's signature. Sukir becomes emotional and pleads with Randall to help her, but he is unsympathetic and dismissive. In a moment of quick thinking, Sukir reveals that she had recorded their conversation and that the recording will be sent to several people as evidence of his wrongdoings. This revelation leaves Randall speechless and powerless. The story concludes with Sukir taking control of the situation and effectively checkmating Randall by exposing his corrupt actions and potentially saving herself from legal repercussions. The title Checkmate is fitting as it reflects and refers to the chess metaphor throughout the story, in which Sukir outwits and defeats Randall in a game of strategy and deception. Oh, and by the way, we currently open a WhatsApp group and community where you can learn and share with other people. If you're really interested, let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and listening this piece from Ticket Book Club. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed, turn on the notification bell and share with your family and friends. Catch you in the next one.